We've been thinking a lot lately about how we might most effectively communicate the critical importance of enterprise structure in the context of both strategy and operational tactics in creating a charter school that is focused on fulfilling its mission to educate children. In this initial and inaugural authorization orientation meeting with individuals interested in authorizing their charter school with Utah State University, we believe it is important to help you start the process of creating narratives and conceptualizing the kind of information and management systems that will foster mission-aligned accountability. We hope to provide you with the kind of advisory support that will facilitate the creation of a school enterprise that empowers you to ensure maximum resources are devoted to fulfilling your learning-centric mission. Having started a few enterprises myself over my career, both for-profit and nonprofit entities, I know that oftentimes there is enormous pressure to be diverted from the organizational mission because of the immediate demands of managing both revenue and costs of the business. I suspect that your passion is ultimately about making a difference in the lives of children, not managing the general ledger accounts for a multi-million-dollar business enterprise. I've faced these same kind of enterprise management pressures in organizations that I've started. We are committed to helping you along your path of creating a USU authorized charter school that minimizes the potential for getting derailed because of strategic, operational, or tactical dysfunction within your organization. There's broad agreement among scholars about the most common features of charter school failures. Relying on meta-analysis of charter school data from around the country, research suggests that most charter school failures reflect dysfunction within the business processes rather than within the learning system processes. While I'm sure that every charter school that ultimately fails has its own sad story that reflects some unique set of challenges, the three most commonly cited reasons for charter school failure are reflected in, first, poorly informed and poorly structured investments in buildings. Second, conflicts of interest between the mission of the school to educate children and the narrow economic interests of founders and/or school leaders. And third, a lack of understanding about how to attract student enrollments, how to sustain those enrollments, and how to sustain a revenue model that is aligned with a learning-focused cost structure. This part of the orientation presentation is designed to help you consider how your charter school mission can be aligned with an enterprise model that increases your capacity to be a sustainable success in your chosen market. Academic literature on the science of organizational effectiveness is so large that it creates significant confusion about core foundational principles that undergird a commitment to excellence in meeting the organizational mission. You undoubtedly have heard of the Covey model or the Arbinger model, or lean models of various kinds that target creation of an organizational culture aligned with operational excellence. All of these approaches offer narratives that provide rich contextual framing for understanding foundational elements of organizational success. But how do you choose a science-informed enterprise structure among the cacophony of voices that would draw you to one specific model over another? We would like to suggest that all effective organizational models share core principles that might not be evident in their efforts to create differentiated language around their particular narration of a system of effectiveness. For charter schools in particular, we believe there are four core principles that guide success. First, a clear recognition that every school is an enterprise, with an expectation that school leaders will effectively manage the business of delivering effective learning outcomes to students, parents, and the communities they serve. Second, that the immediate demands of day-to-day administrative challenges, including the complex matrix of compliance requirements, can undermine the mission to create an extraordinary learning experience for students. These business distractions need to be managed within a systems perspective that creates realistic and sustainable solutions to day-to-day operational distractions. Third, the critical elements of effective organization are both strategic and tactical. They are grounded in the science of value creating human interaction. Strategy and tactics must be formally and systemically aligned and integrated into the organizational structure. And fourth, a learning organization is an enterprise that is skilled at creating, acquiring, and transferring knowledge, and at modifying its behavior to reflect new knowledge and insights. Everyone within the school, regardless of their job title or work assignment, must be fully committed to a process of learning how to be more effective in driving learning outcomes. After all, that is why your charter school exists in the first place. We believe that every student deserves to be exposed to the powerful learning opportunities that can emerge within such a charter school organization. Emmy Haywood is here to help walk us through an example that explores what that organization may functionally look like and feel like by drawing from her own experience.
Thanks, Chris. So I'm originally from Star Valley, Wyoming. I attended high school at Star Valley High School. And if you walk through the front doors of Star Valley High School, you'll walk down a long white hallway off to your left, and there will be classrooms on both sides until you get to a large rotunda with brick walls off to your right and a library to your left. I walked through that high school for 3 years daydreaming about painting murals all over the brick walls of the rotunda. Like, it was going to be the Sistine Chapel. I was a pretty hyperactive art student, and I was fully committed to painting murals all over my school. I had a small network of like 3 to 4 other art students who would get me fired up about actually painting a mural, till finally my pal Jackson Day challenged me to draw a couple designs, get permission, and then just go for it. So I did. Me and my friend Tiffany, another art student, we practically attacked our principal in the hallway one day. We were like, "Mr. Bennett, can we paint this mural on the wall?" He gave us a green light, so we went to our art teacher next, got another okay from him. So Mr. Guild, my art teacher, and I stayed late after wrestling practice for him and track practice for me, and we projected my sketch of the mural up onto the brick wall of the rotunda, and we sketched it in with white chalk. Next, we convinced like a few other AP art students to help us. And that first day of painting the mural, we just started painting the feet of the people in the mural. So we all had our shoes off and we were looking at them like, wait a sec, how do we paint? Can we do this? That was like our one moment of self-doubt, is like, can we actually paint a mural? Our art teacher, Mr. Guild, had to calm us down for a sec and say, listen, if you mess up, you can just paint over it. Just go for it. After that, we were fine. We figured it out, and we realized that we could, in fact, paint. So over the next few months, we stayed a couple nights a week after our other extracurricular activities and school, of course. And Mr. Guild would unlock the school for us every free Saturday we had. We got a hold of a mechanical lift. The shop teacher loaned us a few ladders. We had to get a little creative with our resources. We mixed all the colors for the mural ourselves, from the 3 primary colors plus black and white. We would duct tape paintbrushes together to get further reach from the lift. We duct taped our iPads to the wall, that way we could have a reference photo while we painted the people's faces. And because I had designed the mural, the other girls acted like I knew exactly what they should paint and how. But literally, they were just as good artists as I was. So my directions usually boiled down to, I don't know, you do what you think looks good. Just kind of go for it. It'll look great. Next slide. And it did. They were incredible. They were responsible for at least 75% of the mural. It took a whole community of us to make it happen. So it was cool to see the students and the teachers like interested in and invested in our progress and our creativity. The teachers wanted this detail or that detail hidden in the mural. Our geography teacher, Mr. Lancaster, made sure that we included Sri Lanka and kept all of our countries straight up on the globe. The principal wanted to get painted in. When one of the students in our student body passed away in a car accident, we got to paint him in the mural. The mural will never quite be done in my mind. Like, there's a knot that's a little too far left over here, or a person that's a little out of proportion over there. and like a couple other issues that'll probably bother me forever. But the mural will be there when both my baby brothers walk through the hallway of Star Valley High School. And I hope the mural will be there to continue to inspire people for years to come. So I learned from this experience that leaders don't always know exactly what they're doing. Sometimes they just have to sketch a design, duct tape a paintbrush or two together, surround themselves with people who share their passion for art, and then just go for it. I tell this story because it takes passionate individuals with a lot of drive and commitment to get others to buy into their fantastic ideas, pull together a community of people who can make it happen. Like, you've got to see murals where there's only bricks and be willing to go for it in order to make your vision a reality and create something that will inspire others for years to come.
Well, thanks, Emmy. What a great example of an organization building a legacy because of the passion of the school that allows its students to exercise their creativity and results, in a place that be a legacy and a rallying point at the school. As Chris said, the school's core mission is centered around the students and driving learning outcomes. And as we said, the strategy and the tactics really have to support that mission. As we think about an organization structure of strategy and tactics and operations as a set of gears interconnected that drives learning outcomes, the vision and purpose of the school is why we exist. And so if we think that the strategy is there with the tactics and it's driving the student outcome, you really think, well, strategy, why do we exist? What do we want to accomplish? And for just a few seconds, why don't we just reflect as a group, each of you probably, if you're at Athenian Academy or other place, you work at a school, and think about for one moment, why does our school exist? What truly is it we want to accomplish? So if we think about that for a moment, then we go back to the gears, we can see how the three elements really interact. I'd just like to point out that the vision and the mission and the purpose of the strategy is the one that you probably look at it and you think, well, it's extremely important, and it is, but it's also the one that is less flexible in the system. What do I mean by less flexible? And I don't know if you have had the same experience as I have, but organizations that are continually trying to define themselves or continually seeking a new vision or regularly changing their vision, mission, and purpose are generally the ones that have greatest difficulty in sustaining themselves and actually providing the results they were looking to do. Then if you look at the tactical gear, which is really the administration operations, it's the one which in the non-classroom individuals will be spending most, if not all, their time and effort day to day. And it really needs the largest amount of dedication to detail. Yet tactics or operations is the one element that should probably be the most flexible. I know that for some of you, probably Rebecca, principally, you think that's a crazy thought, why flexible? But what do I mean by flexible? Well, first, by nature, we know it will not be static. With time, procedures once created will have to be updated. Systems will need to be upgraded, not to mention that there will always be a continual change in the regulatory reporting that's required. And we know there will be a natural tendency for people turnover. Teachers will come and go, and administrators will come and go. That's just part of life. What is really important is to ensure that we're continually reviewing and learning more about our operations to assure, one, that the process is always reconciled back to the vision, mission, and purpose of the school, which is really the learning outcomes and the student at the center. And that is driving and supporting the outcomes we want to achieve related to that student learning. So if you're able to marry the strategic and the tactical, the organizational outcomes will be the creation of a strong performance culture that's focused on the student, where the operations and resources support efficiently that outcome, and that every individual, whether they're in administration or the academic and teachers, are aligned to that vision. Basically, really, it becomes the DNA of the school. What is the DNA? Well, part of it should be the individual accountability and commitment by each person that at the school, regardless of their role, they're committed to achieving the vision and the mission and the purpose and ensuring that all the processes are aligned to that purpose. It may seem a little unusual to think, well, how does facilities align to the purpose of teaching? But we know it does. The classroom is important. How does technology? Extremely important. It has a role as well. So let's take a look at the strategic elements that drives the building of that culture. So the strategic elements are made up of cultural alignment, which is the shared vision and commitment, organizational commitment, and accountability. So cultural alignment throughout the organization, a clearly articulated mission, vision, and purpose really drives the cultural alignment at the operational level of the organization. That commitment then at the organization has to be creating, cultivating an organizational structure and operations and procedures that really reflect that commitment and continuously looking to improve, to be more efficient, to always be producing back dividends back into the learning environment for the students. And really, the accountability component is about, the principle of accountability is a little different than what's known as accountability maybe from the Utah State Board of Education and regulations. It's really about the accountability of our being able to create a high performance empowered school, which is extremely important. At first, we start with a grand purpose as what we would like to do, because why did we start the school? What is our vision? We kind of come up with a strategy of what type of an education will be. Will it be blended? Will it be online? Will it be, in person? And that really begins with the cultural alignment. It's very important that the board, the administration, the teachers, basically each person continues to remind themselves and ask continually, what is it we're trying to achieve and how do I support it? And not in the way that I would, the way that you probably hear in what we call the coffee talker, like, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? But it's really like, no, wait a minute. What are we trying to do? How does this go back to the vision? How does this go to the purpose of the school? So it becomes the center and drives what we're going to do, what we're going to invest in, how we can use our best resource to achieve that vision. And it's a constant key question that everyone needs to ask oneself, starting with the board and emanating out from it. With cultural alignment, individual accountability is the key factor for driving the positive outcomes that you want coming from the vision. As Chris said, it could be easy to get distracted from this vision. I think the day-to-day elements that happen. So, we get drawn into, did someone call in sick? Did the lights not come on? Computer crashes? All those things are related to the day running of the school. But, there's a bit of energy that comes from that because it drives you. Crisis is a great motivator for focus. So when things happen that you don't expect, it really draws your mind to focus on what is it that is important and what do we need to do. So there is a lot of an energy created between that. What is the purpose and what is the reality in the day-to-day? So this thing around cultural alignment and DNA is something I think is very interesting and something I've really embedded through my professional career. I think we should not underestimate it. And I'll give you an example where I was touring an airplane manufacturer, and I was there visiting them. I was looking at their operations, and throughout the tour, and this is a major airplane manufacturer, airplanes that all of us, I'm sure, have flown on if we've flown our life, not Boeing, I'll be full disclosure, but another one. And as we were going through there, they talked a lot about productivity, quality, innovation. And at the end of the tour, the general manager of the plant, I said, can I ask a question? How is it that I don't see anything on the walls about vision, mission, and purpose, about safety? Because when I think of flying, I think safety is at the core of this. And his answer was quite enlightening for me because he basically said, safety is so embedded in our culture and in our DNA that if we had to write it and put it on the wall, we would have a problem. And I thought, wow, what a great way to crystallize a vision, mission, and purpose that gets really embedded into a culture. So creating a vision and mission, that's so embedded with the DNA of a school that everyone, the board, the administration, the ops staff, teachers, everyone are aligned with that vision that you don't really need to write it down. They know what it is and they're accountable for executing it. Interestingly enough, in this airplane factory, each person was accountable to look out for anything that was slightly off that would create safety issues and report it. Think about a school where everyone is aligned, trying to say, what can I do to align improving the learning environment and the learning outcomes? So each person has a personal integrity to ensure that they are in compliance with that vision, mission, and purpose, and that everything's done really to reconcile back to it. So let's take this vision, mission, and purpose and see a little bit of how it folds into the tactical elements or the operations of the school. The tactical or operational elements of the school is really how the school is managed on a day-to-day basis. And I'm sure many of you, I hate to keep calling Rebecca out, but Rebecca and others on here in this group really know they live this every day. It's really what's done to really drive what's behind the school. So the student learning outcomes really should be the core to this operations. It's really what it's all about. The primary elements, as you look at the tactical elements, starts with governance. And governance drives out what the culture is going to be. And it'll drive through HR, the onboarding of individuals and talent management. It's also what helps set out what are the information systems that we should be using, what are the business management practices and who should be running that, and takes us out to compliance. So if we really think through that, governance should be, even though it looks around, it should be flat, where we're really pulling accountability of some of this into the classroom, because the mission, vision, and purpose of the school is what happens in the classroom. We need to cultivate the sense that teachers are important drivers in the governance of the governance process, but with the students really being mission critical to this. And when we think of compliance, when we think of this tactical part, many times we associate this with regulatory compliance, financial transparency, and being in compliance with the Utah State Board of Education, or even with Utah State University, as eventually it's your authorizer, perhaps. That's all very important. But what is meant here by compliance is that everyone is individually accountable to ensure that the people, operations, processes, and systems are really compliant with the vision and purpose of the school and are supporting those learning outcomes. We have to be in full compliance with the regulators. That's non-negotiable. I mean, absolutely non-negotiable. Also, it's most important that we're in compliance with the reason why the school exists. Governance is important to ensure that all the resources are being maximized in full compliance with that vision and purpose of the school, which is student learning. So if the most critical elements of the operation is what happens in the classroom, then we need to make sure that the teaching component is well represented within the governance model. I don't know about you, but if you visited some schools, you'll notice you'll have a chance to look around and say, wow, it appears like there's really two different organizations working within the school. One is the administrative operational organism that's there to run the school day to day. And the other one is the teaching element. And at times it feels like neither twain shall meet. In reality, there should be a single identified or identifiable organization where the functions, the operations and process support the primary purpose of the school, which is teaching the children. So governance needs to make sure teachers are empowered and effective. HR really helps us with onboarding and offboarding and the benefits related to the people. Information system is really what governance needs to help the school understand what is being managed, ensuring that the data and indicators that the school is using is maximizing its resources and achieving its vision and purpose. But just important to realize that when we talk about information system, it's not all about IT or technology. It's a system in the way that we share information, either in a structured or unstructured way. How effective are our feedback groups? How effective are our meetings and peer reviews? Are we really pulling together as a team? Business management is very important part of running the school on a day-to-day business. It gets a lot of focus and attention, given the importance of funding, financial compliance, and the day-to-day operations of the school to maintain the school operational. I think one of the things we have to be careful is that it does not become the reason for the school. It really is there to support the mission of the school. It's to support the school in effectively delivering excellent learning outcomes. And that function, business management, needs to be very efficient in bringing a high level of productivity and effectiveness to empower what happens in the classroom. So really, in the end, compliance is what wraps around the whole system and not just on the regulatory side. That's a lot of detail, a lot of information, and you drive it, and it doesn't even scratch the surface. I know that when you get down into what happens day to day, day in and day out. But with all this said, and given most of you probably will be associated with some of the boards, some of you are on the boards, and you'll be setting up the school, we probably want to spend a little bit more time on governance. So let's look at the traditional governance model that most schools employ. There's a board, a director, and then there's a structure of the school that flows down through it, being quite hierarchical given both the administrative and the academic branches. However, think about perhaps a slightly different model where it would be a bit flatter. Flatter means bringing maybe the teachers closer to the center of power being the board, being that engagement, which happens around the governance model. In this model, the student in the classroom is definitely the center of the model and the reason and the purpose of the school. So if that's the case, the teachers have to be empowered and well represented in the governance structure to have a voice to produce the outcomes for the school. The board is critical in creating the classroom-centered culture and bringing the teachers closer to the board through a single or a couple of organizational nodes. But it needs to ensure that the board agenda really reflects the drivers related to the vision and purpose of the school. So it's holistic in its view as the compliance of the school and not only the regulatory compliance, which many times for valid reasons occupies a large part of the board's agenda. So the other thing I would just think about is the board composition. You need really individuals who reconcile to the vision and purpose and have a passion for the school, but you also need talents that represent a diversity of technical expertise on your board, such as finance, maybe some regulatory and academic experience. This will help the board work through issues more quickly and help in the decision process. And finally, obviously, you need to be in full compliance with all the regulations. Just again, remember the governance is about compliance with the full purpose and vision of the system of why the school exists. So governance needs to drive the culture, strategy, and tactics to really assure that teaching is extremely effective in your classroom. The most important person in your ecosystem is the student by far. And that's why the teachers are on the front line with them, have to really be aligned with the vision, mission, and purpose of the school. And then they need to be empowered and given the resources to operate through your governance model.
Thank you, Emmy, and thank you, Dawn, for setting practical context for what it means to create an effective charter school enterprise that fulfills its mission-centric purpose to create extraordinary learning experiences for every student that enters their curated learning space. In closing, I would like to reiterate the critical importance of bringing a level of science-informed sophistication to your enterprise management strategy and the tactics that are used to undergird your commitment to being a transformational catalyst to student learning. We are excited to support you on your journey to create such an organization, one that is committed to and aligned with this bold ambition.